Hello and welcome back to the Obojima Podcast. My name is Jeremiah and I'm joined with the writers of Obojima, or we are the writers of Obojima, Adam and Ari. And you're joining us for our weekly writers meeting where we sit down and we chat Obojima, we chat D&D, we talk about different things,
fantasy,
whatever we want. Yeah. And today's a special episode because Ari's in the dark and Adam and I have all the power.
Finally.
In Ari's absence, Adam and I have made a faction and a subclass, and we are now going to present it like proud students to teacher Ari and have him grade it.
Sensei Levitch.
All right, I'm ready.
So let's start, like all places do, with the Konotori, the organization that started it all. So in crafting this faction, we were kind of thinking of, well, I guess we're thinking of a ranger subclass, which would later go on to be the Fumoshiki. And this ranger subclass is based off of using ceremony and like ceremonial sacraments like alcohol and tobacco in practices to quote unquote enact Obojima's will. And it's by righting wrongs and putting to rest demons and fixing balances and tipping scales to make sure that the nature is at rest. And so this concept of the Fumoshiki started in the age of humanity long ago, where they would go and kind of, enact these rituals, traveling from town to town, doing these things. And eventually the organization Konotori is formed, where there are portions of Konotori that are Fumoshiki, these rangers that go out and enact these practices. And the other group of the Konotori are the Zako, which are like support members that make the sacraments, these holy sacraments, like the alcohols that they produce or the tobacco, bubbling leaf is what they call it. And then offer these sacraments or assistance to the traveling Fumoshiki. So they might be members of, like, the owner of an inn that lets the Fumoshiki stay there for free or whatever it is. And they're all across the island. And so it's very Musashi. It's very Ranger-esque. I think I'm absolutely in love with this idea. And I kind of wanted to go over some of these ideas with you. But I think we start with the sacraments. And so the Fumoshiki deploy many tools. I'm just going to read a little bit from what we have. The Fumoshiki deploy many tools and techniques within their rituals, but few are as important as their sacred sacraments. These ceremonial components are the 3 specialty alcohols that the Konotori have distilled for centuries, and bubbling leaf, a harsh tobacco grown in the land of hot water. It's through the production and sale of these sacraments that the organization has flourished for as long as it has. And so the trilogy of spirits, which is Blurry Root, Junum, and Paya, are all produced by different ingredients throughout Obojima. And then bubbling leaf is a specialty.
Sorry, so spirits in this context is alcohol.
Yes,
okay,
exactly.
Got it.
I make sure to use alcohol before I say spirits in all of these. But there's no cool way to say alcohol. I say alcohols, plural, and it's like, ugh. Who says this? Ugh, gosh.
Spirits.
But and then bubbling leaf is like a specialty tobacco grown in the land of hot water. Now, I did a huge deep dive in the production of tobacco and alcohol for all of this. I went too deep, and I learned a lot about tobacco production. But the overall concept for this, and I think the thing I really want to focus on, is less on the organization and more on the Fumoshiki Rangers. The thing, I think, the juice is the idea, is it's the Lone Ranger type character walking from town to town and being you walk by them and they're sitting there and they're staring at a fence post and they're just like, and you're like, what's going on, old man? He's like, something's wrong about this. And he sits there and he's just chain smoking cigarettes. Okay. And he like writes down a talisman and he folds it up. And then he takes a little stick and he carves it and sticks it in the fence post and lights the talisman on fire and then pours a little alcohol around it. And he goes, all right, I think that'll take care of it. And goes on around his day. And I love that. I love the flavor of being like, I'm not here necessarily to go and kill the big demon, and I'm not hunting the big monster. I'm like this farmer, like cut down the tree that a bunch of spirits were living in. And now the spirits are uneasy in the area. And I'm going to come and like fix that.
Like soothe, basically.
I'm going to soothe this problem.
Yeah.
Or if there is a demon, like, okay, I'm going to fight this demon, but like I'd rather trap it or like scare it off. Like they're not necessarily here to like be this like it's crazy cool adventure. They're here to use these like ceremonies that they've developed over time to right wrongs, or maybe atone for people's like wrongdoings, or if they can, lead the people that have done those wrongdoings to a better practice. And I think I'm deep in it, but I absolutely love the idea of all of these rituals that they're enacting. And a big part of it too comes down later into how they utilize spells. So all of their spell ingredients are like any material components in their spells are all replaced with the sacraments that they utilize. And so they've basically have their special way of enacting spells, and then they have a subset of spells that are unique to them, that are these different traditions and ceremonies that they operate on a regular basis.
All right. My initial thoughts is, first of all, it makes me smile. I think this is really flavorful. I'm getting like Mushi Master type vibes from the show Mushishi. Yeah. And again, if you haven't watched it yet, by now, if you haven't watched it, that's on you. You really should watch it.
Super good.
And you'd get a real sense of this. I think it starts to point out things, again, like we have to do more work on the spirit realm and how spirits interact with the world. But this is a great way to highlight that, there might be spirits that are, it says a lot about the world. So first of all, it says there is a homeostasis that exists between the spirit realm and the physical world and all of these types of things. And that not necessarily anything that is negative with a spirit is necessarily demon related.
Right.
Demons are its own kind of like spirit activity. So like in the example you gave, like with the, this old man, this ranger, like looking at this fence post and something is amiss, right? And then they do this ritual and they do this thing and leaves. But the animation in my head as this person walks off, what you are seeing is that all of a sudden, like after a beat, all of these like almost like worm-like, spirit type things start bubbling up out of the wood and then scattering away, right? Yeah. Like, yep. So it's almost like in some respects it's soothing certain spirits. It also could exorcise spirits that they might be stuck in some way. Yeah. And not necessarily in a malicious way. They actually might be stuck themselves. And by virtue of being stuck somewhere, it's causing all of this discord. And then in the most extreme case, if there is a demon that is either physically active in this world or using their energy to corrupt something, they would probably be still specialists in dealing with them directly. And so maybe perhaps rather than killing demons, they're really good at binding them or weakening them in some fashion. Yeah. So like I think this is really cool. I love that there are physical affectations here as well. Like somebody that is smoking in this way, and if it has like a particular smell, you'll know when you're in the presence of one of these guys, and which I think is really cool. And then how do they transport kind of the sacramental alcohols? How do they do that? Is it in vials of these things? Is it like, do they carry around a bunch of bottles? Like what? Because if there are different kinds, then they're going to have different vessels to keep them all separated. Yes. So if there is a distinct vessel that they use that might be kind of separated into 4 chambers or something, and they can they click the thing and then they kind of pour out the one that they use. Like there are lots of cool things that become signature items of these of this subclass, which I think is kind of cool.
Exactly.
Like as a I'm like the DM and the player that loves encumbrance and loves like knowing how many arrows I've got. I think this is a great class or subclass to play that where you have a limited number of like options. Like you can carry this, you can only carry so much.
You have like 6 pours of each of one of these alcohols or whatever.
And then the Fumoshiki Ranger is dependent on the rest of the Konotori like organization. So you might be in a certain area in Obojima, you've used up your stuff, and then you have to figure out where's the closest like monastery that is making more of the alcohol or growing the tobacco that I need to like continue to do. Like maybe I only stopped part of the disturbance in the spirits, but maybe like further up the mountain, the spring, the spirits have been upset and the spring has stopped running. And now that's caused all kinds of problems for the community. It's like, I've got to balance all that out, but I need a lot more sort of material.
I need more sacraments.
And you might have, I mean, it also could be a thing where it's like using the sacrament, using these alcohols might be a thing where it's like, this is like the sure way to do it. But in a bind, let's say I can use something else, but it's
like a Band-Aid.
It might be less effective, or you know what I mean? Like I only have water, or if it's like distilled from potatoes or whatever, it's like, yep, I have a potato here, I could do something with, like with it. And so there might be ways to improvise, or there's always like perhaps a more circuitous way of doing the ritual, but the easiest, most direct way is using this kind of sacrament.
So they also have other tools at their disposal. The sacraments are by far their most used things, but we also talk about their use of calligraphy and the importance of like ink and writing seals and things like that. We actually have a section that before you become Fumoshiki, you have to be before you even pick up a sword within the organization, you have to be a master calligrapher.
Mm-hmm.
So before they even teach you how to wield a blade, you have to be amazing. And then in addition to that, to become a Fumoshiki, you have to pluck the hairs off of a wild boar to make the brush that you take with you. And so like the calligraphy in itself and ink is very important. Another thing are these things called wind singers. They're also called wind wands, but they're basically it's a contraption. It's a wood handle with like a stick, and there's rubber bands on it, and you swing it around, and it goes like. It's what they made the orthocopter noise from Dune with. Like
it's like a bull roar.
Yeah, it's like a bull roar. A bull roar could also be used. And so like that in itself is used within some of their ceremonies and things like that. Censers and bonfires, different ways to burn the tobacco and stuff like that.
Yeah, it's almost like different spirits would engage with different senses. So like if it's like sound, or if it is, but even like the idea of writing, that there's magic in writing.
I think that's cool. That could be another sort of thing that we create, which is like maybe in the monster, it's like if your monster has a certain thing, it's like it only responds to this stuff. So maybe there's some kind of in-game testing out. Like let's say there's a spirit disturbance, and the Fumoshiki goes there, and you're trying out different things. Well,
you're investigating.
Yeah.
There's like an investigation phase that is not simply make an investigation check.
Yeah.
Right? Like I'm kind of probing to see like what kind of entity are we dealing with?
Yeah.
Like, oh crap. All right, I'm going to do this like this sound. If it responds to this, you guys better run.
Yeah.
It's like, oh my God, like that's such great tension, and then they do it, and then you're just like, yep, and things start coming out of the woodwork at it. It's like that's so cool.
Yeah.
Like that is perfect cinematic D&D to me.
It's outstanding.
Yeah.
I love it.
I also like that you've got a spirit that has a problem, and the solution is actually to call other spirits that then chase that spirit away. Like there are these sort of like your knowledge of the spirit world. It could either like you could play a game where the player's knowledge actually grows, like they're building up their own lexicon, or you could do it through rolls. You could say, okay, you've got a DC whatever roll to figure it out, and then you figure out like, oh, it's this combo move. Like I have to summon this thing, and then then it solves the problem.
It reminds me of the adventure we wrote last couple weeks ago, where this town gets surrounded by these tulip bulbs, these like living tulip bulbs that turn you into bushes. You could imagine one of these Fumoshiki Rangers being like,
Oh man.
I think I'm going to release a demon. And everyone's like, what? He's like, yeah, I got a demon trapped in a clay pot in my backpack. I was going to take it and destroy it, but if I release it, I think it'll scare off these things, and it's probably easier to catch the demon than it is to get rid of these guys. So I'm going to release this and everyone run.
Yeah. Clear out.
I mean, there could be just like really fun stuff. Even if we kind of build out demons, there could be little things about them that are like tells. Right, so like we talked about this a little bit with vampires a while back, like the idea of like in vampire mythology, if you scatter rice, like they will have to count them, right? So imagine if you might have like a clay pot, and one of the things you do is you throw it on the ground, and when it shatters, they have to stop whatever they're doing and try to collect all the shards, right? And try to put it like there's like this obsessive quality to it, and so like that might be a way to draw them out. I'm just like, all right. Here we go. I'm going to throw this down. And it's like, all right. And if you see these kind of shadowy hands come out and try to collect everything.
Unhumanly fast.
Yeah.
And you're like,
so you have to bind it.
Everyone's getting ready.
Like, grab its hands now and pull it out.
Yeah.
If it finishes that pot, we're all dead.
Get the shackles.
Yeah, exactly. So like that kind of stuff, where now an encounter isn't just reduce zero hit points. Like the encounter is grab hold of this thing, pull it out into the light, so that maybe the wax rogue can like
seal
put the seal on thing. Like that to me is really fun, and that goes back to like a conceit of a party as well, right? Okay, we are about dealing with these things. So you have one of these rangers, you have a wax rogue, like you have these different, you might have an origami mage that's there to create these like envelopes that you put these entities inside of and then seal them. It's like, I have all of these,
It's like an origami maze.
Yeah.
It's trying to find its way out.
Exactly. Yeah. So it's like now they have a whole conceit for a party where we are these kind of supernatural kind of detectives, or we just deal with these, these spirit-related crises, and that's our deal. And that's really cool.
Yeah, I like also that, with the whole party,
God, I love it.
You have like different roles that you're having to make. So like when we were talking about chases, the idea of like, well, what happens to the non-dexterous character? Like they're like, I've got charisma. How does that factor into a chase? Well, in dealing with demons, there could be all kinds of like, all right, I'm going to do this because, I've got the correct like vials of, sake or whatever that I'm going to pour on this that'll do it. But then I'm going to hand the shackles to the most dexterous character because they're going to have to jump on it. And then the most intelligent character is going to figure out this thing. And, maybe it's like using all the gifts of your party to actually accomplish, a problem.
Yeah. It's almost like a real-time ritual, right? Like you have to, all of these pieces have to go. Like if I set this thing up and the person who is dexterous doesn't have can't shackle them. Now like we have to help try to wrangle this thing and wrestle this thing. And so like
everybody pile on.
Yeah, so you that's really fun. And that's that's also like a DM knowing their players or knowing the characters that are in the game.
That makes me think of like that would be a great sort of either a sub boss or an epic boss where you're trying to like the big deal is you've got an elder demon has escaped, and so you learn all this stuff, you get all these pieces and parts, and then at the end you've got to trap this elder demon.
Yep, because in a straight up fight, you're gonna get smeared by this demon. like that's just gonna happen. So like
clean your cloth.
Yeah. So okay, but you can defeat it in a different way.
Yeah.
Right. By binding it. Like, that's cool.
Yeah, and learning that ritual, and the Fumoshiki can be really the sort of the hub of that party where it's like,
I do have a question, and I don't have an answer. This is mostly I just wanted to get your thought process. Why a ranger?
I think ranger fits very nicely in itself with how I imagined the Fumoshiki, which is this like quote unquote ranging character, a person leaving and exploring, and in general have a connection to nature. I think the Fumoshiki are enacting Obojima's will, and Obojima's will in itself kind of falls into this collection of nature magic that we've been talking about. What I also wanted is I wanted them to have access to magic, but not too much, right? They're not like casting huge spells. And I wanted it to be, kind of open in itself. You also could have gone to Paladin, which is an option, right? practicing through tradition, things like that.
Yeah, it could be like an oath of balance or something like that, right?
But I think already that smites are built into Paladin felt like it was going in the wrong direction for me.
Yeah. I look at Rangers for a second, see where they're at right now.
I can tell you some of the abilities that I have for the Fumoshiki Ranger. We can kind of talk about some of these ideas. One of the hard parts, and this is something where story Fumoshiki Ranger has to differ from mechanical Fumoshiki Ranger, because story Fumoshiki Ranger like knows all the tricks and knows how to do these things, but mechanically it's quite hard to be able to offer up those things.
Yeah.
Specifically because they get really fixated on certain things.
Yeah.
I'm gonna like this thing calls out a demon and like draws them near, and it's like, well, that's an awesome feature, but like it can't be your 7th level ability because it's too narrow. And then when you want to expand on that, then you have one 7th level ability that does like 7 small things, and it becomes too complicated. So instead, I've focused on a handful of things. The big thing that I'm focusing on is this luck ritual that they learn. And it's essentially this like ritual that they cast on themselves or other people, which help them get through dangerous scenarios. It's something that I imagine like as the Fumoshiki Ranger wakes up in the morning, they like, they write a incantation on a piece of paper, and then they kind of roll it up, and they seal it, and then they pack it with tobacco and smoke the incantation or whatever.
I love
it is.
I love it.
And that's how they enact this ritual on themselves. And the way the luck ritual functions is a bit unique here. But the way it works is you roll a d20 for any d20 test you do, which is the new way of saying anytime you roll a d20. And you roll a d6 along with it. And if your d20 is ever lower than the number you rolled on the d6, you add a 10 to it. And then the ritual fades. So basically, it's in a situation where it's like, I really need to get through this, and I roll, and it's like, okay, I rolled a 4 on my d4, and I rolled a 3 on my d20. I can add 10. Now it's a 13, and I pass this ability. And that's how they're the kind of standard ritual effects. And you can cast that on any person. You can enact this ritual on any person, including yourself. And later down the line, that d6 goes up to a d10 and then a d12. But the real way that I'm giving all of these rituals to people is through ranger spells. So you get 5 unique spells. Like, in the ranger levels, it's like you get access to this at 3rd level. You automatically learn it. Every time that happens, it's a spell that only the Fumoshiki Ranger gets. So it's like, when you get this, it is from your traditions. It's from Konotori that you're learning it. And then through their sacraments, their sacred sacraments, that replaces anytime you need to use a material component, you replace it with one of your sacred sacraments. In addition to that, you heal some of your wounds when you take your sacraments. So you heal like a d4 plus your wisdom modifier. So it's a little bit of like constitutional buff there. And then later down the line, you get some action-oriented abilities. Blooming Haze is a thing you get where you exhale a big plume of smoke after just smoking. Like, you can imagine they take out their cigarette and they like, and it burns all the way down.
All the ashes falls off.
And then they like, and the cough and fills the area. And then this is an interesting thing. While they're in the smoke, it fills the space around them. They get half cover. So they're in half cover at all times. No one else is. So it's just them. And then in addition to that, when they attack creatures within their smoke, they deal extra damage. And so it's kind of like this, like, their one really action oriented ability is like this kind of both defense and offense ability. You later get into body rituals. So you get 2 rituals, which you can use both once a day. Shared defense as an action, you can choose a creature that you can see. You learn if the creature has immunities or resistances. So a little bit of some of that, like, I'm trying to figure out what this creature does. And then if they have an immunity or a resistance, you can copy it for the 1 minute. So let's say a red dragon is immune to fire. now you are immune to fire damage as well.
It's helpful.
And so it's this kind of like mimicking effect that you get. And then Breathless is another one. As a bonus action, choose a creature that you can see, including yourself, while holding your breath. No sound can be created by that creature or its actions. You can hold your breath a number of minutes equal to 1 plus your Constitution modifier. When you release the ritual, all of the sounds that were made by the creature explode from your mouth in a cacophonous flurry.
Does it do like damage?
It just is like basically the spell works like you're silencing it and you're like
you're bottling
holding it all up and then it releases, but no damaging effect at the moment.
That's cool though.
And then last one is your luck ritual mastery. And basically when you start a combat and you don't have a luck ritual on yourself, you place it on you. If you have a luck ritual on you, you can now use your reaction to expend your ritual die to reduce incoming damage by the number rolled. You regain uses of your luck ritual. So it's essentially just a boost to the luck ritual ability. Most of these things are different ways to use the sacraments. And then I think what I want to do is make a bunch of these spells that you learn, and you get all of the Fumoshiki ceremony-ness from your spells and kind of focus that through your ranger abilities. Now, these are just my first ideas, and I'm very happy to express other options here. It was why I wanted to get you guys to start talking about it. Some of the spells we can talk about. I really wanted something like if you were forced to kill a creature, like what does that look like? What does the moment look like afterwards? Like let's say you had to kill a boar that is like gone crazed. Like what is the ritual that you perform afterwards? Does it turn into a tree? Do you strip, does it catch fire and you burn it into ash and you spread the ash in the wind or something? Something that takes a long rest, which I really enjoyed. A spell that you enact before you go to sleep, and when you wake up the next morning, the spell has taken effect, and you get some sort of boon.
Yeah,
I think that's really interesting.
That's flavorful.
Very flavorful, right? Coffin nail is something that I think is really interesting. The idea nails are often utilized in ceremonies. So the idea of you nailing a creature and stopping them from doing something, like for example, tagging a talisman with a nail into the side of a Oni's rib cage, and now that Oni can't heal for however long.
That's cool.
This one is interesting. You can, and people, this might be too powerful. You can move a 3rd level spell or lower that you're concentrating on to another creature for them to concentrate on instead. So the idea of the fighter is like, you're out here, you have your spell, and you run over and you take your cigarette out of your mouth and go, hold on to this, don't inhale. And now the fighter or the barbarian is concentrating on whatever the spell is, the smoke cloud or something like that.
Oh, I see what you're saying. Got it.
So you're transferring a spell over to someone who can concentrate it on for you, and now you're free to basically the spell transfers ownership, and now it's the spell that they've cast.
That is
really
so powerful.
Yeah,
because essentially it's giving you 2 concentrations.
It's not giving you concentration.
I know.
It's giving somebody else concentration.
But somebody else who doesn't have to worry.
That's what I mean.
They're
so
not dependent.
I'm not going to give it to the wizard.
No, you'll give it to somebody else.
Yeah.
But it's a ranger. I've thought about this.
Yeah.
It's a ranger. It's a 3rd level spell or lower.
Yeah.
And rangers don't have access to a lot of things. So it's unlike a wizard where they would have these crazy things.
That's fair.
Realistically, the rangers don't get a vast variety that would break the game.
This would be something to throw out to the community and just be like, just try it out.
Can
you break it?
Can you bust it?
Bust it. Please. Please bust this and let us know.
Like a lot of the subclass stuff that you're talking about seems very flavorful. I think there are ideas that I would love to explore. The thing that I would love to look at is when you marry it to the class features. There are some certain things like favored enemy, like deft explorer, and then there's a lot of traversal type stuff. How do you see that? Because building this into that sounds like a really cool thing. Right now, that subclass, spells aside, I could also imagine that being a type of wizard or a type of monk, perhaps. They don't have spells, but you see what I'm saying? The idea, what makes this, using things expertise and the roving ability, like your speed increases 10 feet while you're wearing while you aren't wearing heavy armor, stuff like that. What is the kind of rangery quality of ranging that you imagined with this subclass?
Yeah, I mean, I guess I imagined the ranger section of this being like the equivalent of like the base training that like
You're gonna have to defend yourself.
You're
at some
gonna
point,
have to defend yourself
because they have that like fighting style that you get at level 2,
Yeah.
right? Like, okay, yes, it's a dangerous world out there. You're putting yourself specifically in places that are out of whack.
Yeah.
Right. Okay.
I think like the ranger aspect of it, the reason that I'm not necessarily tying the sacraments or the mechanical features of the subclass to any of those things is because it feels like there's like the base level ranger is I'm really good at surviving and exploring anywhere on the island. Like that's what that core ability is. And so the Fumoshiki, all of the additional stuff that Konotori offers is like layered on top of that. Like the baseline is you can travel, like the Fumoshiki, if they desperately need to be able to go on top of Mount Abora.
Right, because weird stuff happens in all corners.
All
Yeah.
corners.
Yeah.
And so like who's best prepared to travel anywhere on the island? It would be a ranger type character.
And also the rangers are kind of one of the thematic things of that class are like they are, with the hunter's mark, they're specialists with certain kinds of
a specialist. Yeah.
I mean, enemies is the wrong word, but they're prey but in the case of the Fumoshiki, they're almost like doctors in a way. They're going around and their enemy or their prey is imbalances in the spirits or in the island. And so they're not sort of going out and killing things, but they're going out, and because they've studied the spirit realm, because they've studied how the island balances and imbalances, they have this sort of they have formulas and they have prescriptions.
Yeah.
They diagnose and treat, basically.
Yeah. So they're using all their apothecary, they're using their medicine cabinet to like figure out, combine things and then figure out how to balance this, or how to banish a demon, or how to like soothe a spirit, or how to raise a spirit, or like move them from one place to another. So that's the kind of like their rangery ability, whereas like a typical ranger would be like, I know how to hunt and track, dire wolves and whatever.
What I think could be cool, and both of you kind of inspired me here, is what if because all the the ceremonies and rituals that the Fumoshiki enact, I want to build out as spells that they have options that you're available to pick from. What if we gave Fumoshiki an alternate version of Hunter's Mark? Like we would call it like the Fumoshiki Hunter's Mark, and it's like, this is like, if you are the Fumoshiki Ranger, you can take this in place of the standard Hunter's Mark. And now this ability works with all of your Hunter's Mark abilities. So anytime the Ranger would enact Hunter's Mark, you now have the Fumoshiki version, which maybe is less about like, I'm dealing more damage more like, like removing, it could be like removing buffs or putting people to sleep or
gaining, like there's two ways to play it. One was sort of, as we were saying earlier, like you can try things like, I'm going to, spin my, bull roar and see what happens. And then the DM's like, well, that doesn't do anything. Or, oh, that did it. Maybe this new kind of Hunter's Mark gives you, an insight into sort of, the DM gives you a hint, or the DM says, okay, roll your nature roll, but now you get advantage on it.
It's like a read the room type thing. Yeah.
So you're presented with a problem. The spirit has stopped and sealed up the spring no longer bubbles.
So the Hunter's Mark works like this. You magically mark one creature that you can see within range. Until the spell ends, you deal an extra 1d6 force damage to the target. you also have advantage on wisdom, perception, survival checks to find
there you
it.
go.
And then when
Yeah.
you're dropped to 0, you can move the spell to a new creature. So I
Yeah.
think the way Hunter's Mark is often used in D&D currently is like I target a creature and my plan is to kill that creature and
Yep.
then move Hunter's Mark onto another thing.
Yeah.
And then like keep on like I'm trying to deal extra damage. It's solely based on. So what if the Hunter's Mark for the Fumoshiki version is like you can deal the extra damage. Alternatively, you can do a different option that doesn't deal extra damage, but does give you this one benefit. Like maybe you add the D6 to like skill checks on for that creature specifically. Like I'm trying to like I've marked this creature, I've tagged them with a talisman, or I've enacted a ritual. And now all of the skill checks I'm doing to like leap around the target or wrap the rope around them or bind them or make the salt circle around them or whatever I'm doing, I have a D6
or even like resist them, right? It's like
Yeah.
interacting in some fashion.
Yeah.
I mean, it could be like, you blow this smoke and it goes out and it swirls around the creature and either does, X, Y, or Z effect. But it's like the story of it is that somehow one of the sacraments that you're using is doing something. Like you throw one of your little sake jars and it goes, and then it, does something. The creature is like, oh, or like attracted to it and distracted, and then everybody's like, now run,
I think one of the hard parts about making this subclass mechanically is going to figure out how to implement like this story-wise should feel like an endless wellspring of options for you to build on. And how do we focus in on that thing? Like the luck ritual, for example, I really love the mechanic of the luck ritual. I think it's unique and interesting, but it also feels like it's difficult. Like I wanted them to have a baseline thing that's useful to them that wasn't combat oriented. But then every time I tried to get away from something that was kind of generic, it turned into like, getting too in the weeds on a very specific type of scenario. And you want this person to be really well-rounded.
Is it possible to take the luck concept out of this subclass and move it to something else? Like if I think of like a luck, just for example, like a luck rogue that's about like you think about like the gambler archetype. It's like I gotta do whatever I can to like be lucky.
Yeah.
And so like there's this kind of like kind of good fortune concept around them, which could be maybe you could build around that. I don't know. Like as you were exploring, did you find that going into luck? I mean, obviously the game is about luck, right? You're rolling dice, but is there something you discovered? Is there a lot of design space there, or is it kind of limited?
There is. I mean, that specific ability of rolling 2 dice and needing to roll low to gain a benefit is fairly unique, and I'm sure we could add on to that. I don't know. I think doing a luck rogue is very interesting, and I think we certainly could. I think we could take that and build it into a completely unique subclass.
Or it could also be like a sorcerer who's just born lucky. Like that's their deal.
The wizard's like, ugh.
That's kind of cool.
I'm just born lucky.
I dig that.
Don't have to do no studying.
I like what the luck ritual was based off of is another anime by Jeremiah.
Naruto?
No, Jujutsu Kaisen.
Oh,
Anyone who's watched Jujutsu Kaisen or has read the manga is familiar with one of the most disliked characters. So, I mean, he's awful. He's just this slimy, he's this slimy sorcerer, right? Because they're called sorcerers in the thing. And he has a really interesting, a sword that's a hand. And it has a blade coming out of it, so it's like he's holding hands,
like
with
shaking
the thing.
hands with something. Yeah,
And when he drops it, it can like crawl over to him and stuff.
I love that.
He has no idea what, because everyone has a special ability in the world. He has no idea what his special ability is, but he has 6 tattoos underneath his eye. And whenever a situation would kill him, he lucks out and survives. And he doesn't know why. He's just he just thinks he's immortal. But eventually, when all 6 of the tattoos fade, he runs out of his luck, right? And I really like that function of I'm not necessarily Like, I like the concept of like, it's not me who's doing this like really badass thing. It's like, oh no, I'm just like, I enacted a ritual, and if Obojima wills me to succeed right now, I'm gonna succeed. And it's like, I did. It's like, it worked out. I leaped the roof, and I just barely caught on, or whatever it is, or I like just dodged the hammer of the Oni, or whatever it is.
There's something neat about that. Like, I was thinking it could be that you have tattoos and they fade, but then it's the sort of like that character now has, or it could be that you do a calligraphy talisman and you can use it at any time during a session,
And I think you can kind of enact the ritual however you see fit. I mentioned earlier, like smoking a cigarette or whatever. It could be you take a shot of paya or whatever the alcohol is that you choose. Or it could be an actual talisman that you wear on, and the moment it used, you watch it like burn off of your shirt or something like that. It could be like you have to write, you're like in a mirror looking at it backwards, and you have to write the symbol on your forehead with ink, and it fades.
The fantasy to me of this subclass is the concept of ritual, that the right things to do to answer certain things, but sometimes you have to discover what's actually going on. You have to diagnose the problem, and then you can solve the problem with the right implements or time. And I'm wondering if there's something to do with rituals in this space, where if I have my sacraments, maybe I can actually use these spells without burning slots, right? Like it's like a ritual, but it accelerates that ritual. But I'm burning through a different resource, right? Instead of spell slot, I'm burning through these pores. I don't know if that's actually satisfying, because it's just another pool of slots then, basically. But I'm wondering if there is something there about like, I'm doing this ritual, like, don't bother me right now. I have to write this thing out, and then I have to roll it up. I have to anoint it. I have to put it on this thing, and I have to say the name of the whatever, right? Like, that's so cool to me. It's more difficult in like a straight up fight. Like, what are you doing right now? Well, for the next 3 turns, here's what I'm doing. Like, that's less satisfying.
That's the hard part, is mechanically speaking, I need to make this subclass functional in combat and out. And do I have out of combat covered with ideas and abilities? But so it's
in combat, what are you doing?
Right. And because I've decided to make most of the combat abilities, like, there's only one thing that deals quote unquote damage, and it's that smoke ability, and you get it 7th level.
So is there a way to do something where it's ritual like, and the answer might be this is dumb, where I can use, let's say, there are certain ritual type effects that are just like this takes some number of like bonus action equivalents. So I could do my thing, and in the meantime, I'm reciting the whatever, right? And so, like, hey, if you've used the equivalent of 3 bonus actions to do something,
that's
or you can dedicate more attention to it. Like, it's either like 3 bonus actions or 2 actions, and then this thing goes off, right? Whatever the economy is, I don't know what it is. But there's something like that. So, like, in the meantime, as I'm fending off these monsters, I am doing this thing. Or it's like, if you cover me right now, I could do this faster. Kind of.
That's fun, because there might be a time where it's like you're gonna get something, and it's like, I could use a bonus action to get out of this, but I'm working on this thing, and it's like, I'm just gonna take the hit.
That's interesting. You have these rituals that take, let's say, an action. I'm just gonna call it points. So we have ritual points. It takes 3 ritual points to enact this thing, and you could use a bonus action to gain a ritual point, or you could use an action to get 2. So in a round, you could activate this,
right?
Or I could do it slowly over the course of 3 rounds, or I could do a bonus action here.
And some might be more robust. Like the standard one might be 3, but like this other one, it's like, and if I have to bind, a demon or whatever, it might be like, this is like a 6, like this is take 6 or, 9 of these things. It's like, if I dedicate my 3 turn, I have to say this thing, or whatever. Or maybe there are some things that allow you to spread it out to other people. It's like, if we do this together,
right,
then we can spread out those points, right? I'm basically opening up the idea that we can do this, and now I need collectively this number of points, right?
I think the issue is the hard part with that is most combats
Yeah.
last 2 or 3 rounds.
They're designed to do
And
that.
so to do a ritual, you might only get 1 ritual off.
Right.
And by making the rituals spells instead, like with the same flavor, but it's now a spell that I can activate.
It's the same thing.
It just makes it faster.
So it'd
and-
have to be short.
I'm a sucker for flavor though, because if I say like, what are you doing at the table right now? And it's like, I push the spell button. Yep.
Yeah.
Boo. Spell goes off. It happens.
Yeah.
But if I instead, I'm like, I have to do this ritual. What I'm with the movie that I'm playing in my head as the thing is going on is different,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Or I mean, and maybe it just says when you cast spells, this is how you cast spells.
Right.
Okay, because for me as a player, the movie in my head is as important as the way the game plays.
Yeah.
Right? I want to know, well, what are you doing?
Right.
Yep. Like when I cast a spell, like the way the game functions right now, when there are somatic components and all of these types of things, they are micro rituals.
Yeah.
I still have to do these things, but so often when we play the game, it's like I cast fireball. Yep.
So
Yeah.
so how about this to kind of give the best of both worlds here? Because we're making all of these Fumoshiki spells unique to the Fumoshiki class. They're not going to go in the spell section of a book or anything like that. What we could do is we'd give them all ceremony names and we say how it functions. And then below is just a paragraph that's like, this is the thing that you're doing. So it's like we're really leaning into the flavor of this, where it's like, oh yeah, you are about to perform, the okaglyph, the smoke ceremony that you're about to do, and the smoke ceremony, like it's taking your action because you're about to like, you're taking the a handful of tobacco and like the wooden talisman that you painted yesterday, and you're about to like ignite it in your hands and do this crazy thing where you smear it across and the smoke blooms up and it's like this huge thing, and you can like almost like flavored. Oh my gosh. It's the flavor text that's in Adventures. We just build in like you can read this out and this is what your character does. We just like fully flavor text like world. You read this out when you cast the ceremony and it solves it. It does the thing.
It's super cool. Like, and you could have, you could do the flavor text in components, like when you're doing calligraphy or when you are sealing a thing or whatever it is, right? Like there's lots of things you can do. So you could say like, these are the things that I did to make this happen. And I think that's fun. I think it's also just good practice. And then you'll have like kind of your signature moves as well. There's also a part of me, and I've been wanting to get, in terms of like first stage tech type stuff, I've been wanting to get a Rolodex in this game. And I'm imagining like one of these characters who has a Rolodex of like demon names. It's like, oh, I did these things. I know who we're dealing with. And you flip to your Rolodex and like you already have this like ritual ready to go.
You have your
for
recipe
when you deal
card.
It's like, okay, this is what I have to do. And like, it's just like you could have all of that fun stuff right there. But making sure that, again, like the movie that's playing in your head as you are going through this encounter should still feel like that character, how that character would deal with these things. Yeah, they have to do stuff in combat, but they're still going to approach things in the way that they would. And like I have a sense of my character when I'm playing, but I want to make sure that other people are sharing that same imaginary space.
Exactly.
Right? I think it's cool.
I think also like, this is adding another level of work and complexity, but I think it's worth it. It's like, imagine, you have your Obojima adventure and inside are, you've got, your problems and your monsters that they've got to solve. And then just there's like this little Fumoshiki note at the bottom. It's like this monster can be solved this way, or or like these certain.
A Fumoshiki would know.
A Fumoshiki would know.
Yeah.
Yeah, just like a little note that kind of says that.
I mean, maybe in future adventures that we write, we have like like in the location section, we have like factions.
Yeah.
In every location, we have like a section that's like, here are how the factions operate within the space. You could almost do that same thing within these adventures where it's like a corrupted ranger or like a Fumoshiki ranger would know this. A origami mage might know this. A belly brewer would recognize that. And,
those are fun call-outs.
Yeah, like the stamp rogue, the waxwork rogue would recognize that this is a seal from whatever. And it's like, okay, well, and that's like a parrot.
And
It's
that's
like
without rolling, by the way.
That's without
Yeah,
rolling.
yeah.
Because they would just know that stuff. If it's like elementary information for them, but it's so jargony that nobody else would know, I might have to roll it if I'm not one of these things. Like, yeah, I heard somebody say this one time.
Yeah.
But if I'm Fukushima, I would just be like, this is 101 level stuff. Like, of course, I wouldn't just know this information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think that's great, because rolling sometimes is like, why wouldn't I know? I rolled a 3. Why would I roll a 3 on whether or not I know this?
Yeah.
That's just weird.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think the only time you need to roll really is when it's like, eclectic, strange, out of pocket information.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I think that's really cool. Obviously, that is a lot of work to like have to consider all that stuff.
It's kind of when you're designing adventures anyway, you're kind of doing that. You're like, okay, I'm assuming that there's going to be a wizard, a fighter, a rogue, and
right. The wizard could just fly up there.
Yeah. So it's just like, and then also I'm building into the adventure. There are going to be these moments where the fighter's going to shine. This is going to be, the fighter will have their shining moment here. There's going to be, so I need to have a part in the adventure where the rogue shines. Okay, so I'm going to need a locked door. I'm going to need a part in the adventure where the wizard shines. Okay, there's going to be a chasm that you can fly over. It's like, so this would be building in. There's, here's the Belly Brewers moment. Here's the, the Fumoshiki's wizard or the Fumoshiki Rangers moment. Here's, like those kinds of things built in. Are just like cool moments. So you're kind of already doing that work anyway, but it's just adding that little extra bit.
It's like greater specificity.
Yeah. It's like,
I dig it. Well, the puck of time ended quite a while ago, so we should count this episode over. But before we do, I need to turn to Ari and say, are you proud of us? Did we do it right?
I couldn't be prouder.
I hope you like it. We made it for you.
Yeah. I'd play this character.
Good.
It seems really
That's
fun.
all I really need. I just need to know that Ari would play it. Well, thank you so much. Tell us your ceremony ideas in the comments below. Yeah. We would love to hear them. You can find us on Discord, TikTok, Instagram, Reddit, all those places. Like and subscribe, and we will catch you next time.